Good evening, everybody. It's me, Comic Crack, and tonight we're going to talk about the dinging on my computer, which, if anybody has any advice why that's happening, it's not messages coming through. I did diagnostics. If anybody has a tip on why it just randomly chimes, I'd love to hear from you. Please get in touch with me or leave something in the comments. I'm not re-recording this. I'm still going through, so that's part of the video now. So we're gonna do a quick chat about living the line. Recently, I picked up a couple of books, and we spoke about them in the Sunday wrap. But since then, I picked up something else, discovered another channel. So I wanted to kind of do a new video where we incorporate all of that. So I think, like a lot of people on YouTube over recent years, a lot of discoveries were made with the help of the Cartoonist Kayfabe channel. So shout out to Jim Rugg and Ed Piskor. The first time I heard of Living the Line was Sean Michael Robinson making an appearance on their channel. And I'm just going to open that page. Yes, Sean Michael Robinson. Man, I nailed it. There's been a few times that I've said his name out loud and completely screwed it up. So I'm glad I've finally stuck it into my head where I retained it. Carson Grubaugh and Sean Michael Robinson are the two people that are behind the YouTube channel Living the Line. I'm not sure how things kind of get delegated. I think that the Living the Line, the publishing wing, is Sean Michael Robinson, and the YouTube channel is Carson Grubaugh, and then they come together in various ways for each of those kind of entities. But that's kind of the depth that I know about their kind of publishing and YouTube or social media worlds. And of course, anything that I say here, correct me if I'm wrong or if I've missed something. Please feel free to add it in the comments and fill us in if you have better information. So I discovered them through the Cartoonist Kayfabe channel, and I've been subscribed to them since then. When they started publishing books, was it The Strange Death of Alex Raymond? I believe is what that, I think it was their first book. Yeah, The Strange Death of Alex Raymond, that Carson Grubaugh was working on with Dave Sim. They started talking about publishing other books, and it was The Exile that I saw them kind of show images for that really caught my attention. So I recently picked up a second printing of this book that came out this year. The first printing, I think in the back, it says that it came out of February 2023 was the first printing of this. So we're going to talk about this briefly tonight as well. So when I finally picked that up, the very next day, they discussed reaching a pretty substantial benchmark of getting 5,000 subscribers. There's that lovely chiming. Again, I put it out to everybody. If you know why, please let me know. So here's their YouTube channel, Living the Line. You can see they're just over 5,000 subscribers. So congratulations to them for reaching that. So the day after I finally decided to pick up The Exile is the day that they announced that they reached this milestone. They're going to have a contest, which I'm absolutely going to send this video their way to enter into that contest. But also, it's about time that we talked about some of their books on the channel here. And with more to come, because I've ordered 2 of them through one of my local bookstores. So we'll be seeing more of their stuff in the coming months as well. So there's a look at their page. So when I dipped back into that, into kind of their channel and started looking at their past videos, realizing that there's quite a lot of videos that I've missed. When it comes to kind of YouTube videos on comics, I don't dig in as much as I once did. I listen to a lot of other stuff through YouTube, and I watch a lot of other stuff through YouTube. Not that I kind of shy away from comic stuff. It's just, it's really been in my feed a lot less. But it's nice to kind of rediscover some channels, and kind of then you have a whole world of videos that are opened up to you. So I started watching back, and one of them I watched was with Brandon Graham, and he was talking in the video. I'm pretty sure it was in that video. He talked about this book here, which apparently is pronounced Blam, even though it's spelled blame. And he just talked about how this book kind of transported him to another world. So it caught my attention. I'm always on the lookout for new things to read. The beauty of YouTube and doing comic videos and watching comic videos and having this kind of little community is exactly this kind of thing, getting turned on to some books that probably would have passed me by. So I was able to go down to our local bookstore, McNally Robinson. It's Winnipeg owned, Winnipeg originated. Um, and I think they had the first 5 volumes on the shelf, I think is what they had. So, which was great because they had multiple copies of #1. And now that I've finished this, because I finished this last night and really enjoyed it, I'm going to go take a trip back there in a couple of days, and I'll see if I can grab issue #2 or book #2. So he was talking about that one. When I was reading it, I decided to do a search to see if there was anything or any videos specifically with people talking about this book. And I discovered this channel, Dami Lee. Fascinating. She's got a bunch of fantastic videos, but the one that popped up for me was, let's click on videos here, from about a month ago, where she talks about this manga and kind of what effect it had on her and how it fits into her world of architecture, and how it fits in with real life architecture and the idea of liminal spaces. Really fascinating just over 14-minute video there that if you know this manga, or honestly, even if you don't, it's well worth checking out. It's a really great little video. And I love discovering stuff like this where it's people that aren't necessarily nestled deep within kind of the comics world or the art world. They kind of come from another viewpoint to kind of show you from their perspective and their experiences. So really, really great. She talks about an architect in there whose name I'm completely drawing a blank on. But when she shows some of his work, it was very, very reminiscent. Some of the drawings, some of the architectural drawings, like the more detailed drawings, not like blueprints. They really had a Francois Scoitin kind of vibe to them. So I commented in her video about him. I didn't see anything on him in her back catalog already. So I'm hoping that she knows about him, because I'd love to see her perspective or hear her perspective on his work. So if you don't know Dami Lee, please go and check that out. You can dig through some videos. She's got stuff on manga, but you can see here there's one about Akira. I watched one this evening about Kowloon, the walled city. A really, really great array of videos where she not only just talks about architecture, but how it kind of works with anime, manga, video games, science fiction, movies, that sort of thing. So great stuff. Yeah. So back to Living the Line. Discovered them through Ed Piskor and Jim Rugg. Immediately drawn to their channel. Really good guys. Talked about a lot of books that I knew, but also talked about a ton of books that I didn't know anything about. Carson, at this point especially, he has for quite a while actually, had people send him comics to review of their own and things, which is also really great, getting that direct exposure on a channel like that. And he's very honest with his reviews of books. If something doesn't work for him, he doesn't shy away from discussing why it doesn't, or tips on what might have made it better, which I know can kind of be hot and cold for people depending on your perspective on stuff. But I think it's great to hear, even though there may be times that I don't agree with his opinion on it. That's the beauty of YouTube and all of this kind of communicating back and forth or talking about things we love. So I didn't realize that Brandon Graham had a new book coming out, or this book specifically coming out, so soon, because I do believe I heard about it, but I guess I didn't pay close attention to the timeline. So it was great to hear that it was available, and there was one copy left at one of my bookstores here in town, actually just up the street from me, thankfully. So I immediately went and snatched it up. So This is a diary slash journal of his time spent in Las Vegas, what he was going through at the time. He talks about his relationship. He talks about his kind of cartooning and drawing. He talks about his time in the porn industry when he was working on some, it looked like he might have done a little bit of working on sets. I think he had some of his artwork in the background of a couple of videos. He also wrote one, possibly more scripts. Jurassic Pork, I think is what it was called. He had a hand in writing that script. And then talking, sort of addressing the what's happened to him over the years. Anybody who is aware, unfortunately aware of some of the social media stuff that can go on. There was a period of time there where there was an attempt to cancel him completely. And we won't go too much into that. You can find bags of information out there. And as usual, when we talk about these things, I will remind you that please don't believe everything you read. Please try to think for yourself. Please try not to get caught up in the hype of online and some of that bullshit that ends up going on out there. Anyway, so thankfully for us, because I'm a big fan and I, of course, have my own opinions on what went on, and I am a big fan of Brandon Graham. And I'm glad that he didn't go anywhere and that he's still around. Yes, things clearly changed for him, and there's things that he's clearly struggling with and kind of reliving. And I think that's one of the things that made this read so engaging for me. I think with a lot of writing and with a lot of art, and for us in this kind of corner of YouTube, when it comes to comics, I do feel like it's a great way. The autobiographical stuff is something that I grew up on, picking up comics in the 90s. There was a glut of it, obviously. So I was reading quite a lot of autobiographical stuff, to the point of where it became a thing where people were just kind of getting sick of all of these comics where people were spilling their guts on the page, right? They generally appealed to me. Obviously, there's good ones and bad ones. So being back in that kind of world and being in somewhat deep with a creator, that real life experience that you can relate to just brings another dimension to a story. Obviously, I didn't go through things like Brandon has gone through. None of us have gone through the same experiences in life, but there was things that he is still dealing with that are very relatable. I do a lot of the same things, this tendency to kind of relive some stuff and beat yourself up about stuff and almost find it debilitating at some points, right? Like, yeah, I mean, without getting into any details, just that is very relatable. And there was a couple of times where I found myself like kind of talking to the page, like, why are you looking through those emails again? Put that away. That's not healthy. Even while saying it out loud, completely understanding why he might kind of get locked into there. That stuff can be a real rut, and it can be really difficult to sort of bounce out of when you're kind of locked into that kind of mindset, right? And it's how you deal with that as you kind of continue on and try to put some of that stuff behind you. One of the ones that he did share on his social media that I'm really glad to see is included here is the comic strip that he did, or the entry, I guess the journal entry that he did, talking about Ed Piskor. And of course, again, we've spoken about it here on this channel too. This was a really, when I first saw it on Instagram, it was incredibly moving. And it's just as impactful in this book, maybe even more so, considering kind of what you've read up to that point, because that's near the back of the book. So really worth your time. If you're a fan of Brandon Graham, please give it a chance, have a read of it. And again, those of you who have been watching the channel for quite a while, I know that there's a bunch of us here that are pretty big fans of his. When Rain Like Cameras came out, I think that was, for a few of us, one of our top reads, if not the top read of that year. The other one that I got, the other thing that I'll say about Brandon is, and Living the Line specifically, is one of the series of videos that they've done is Formalism Fridays. And it's a really great conversation between them where they dissect kind of a page or an artist, and really talk about something that they're doing within a book that kind of blew them away. Brandon Graham is also a huge fan of Matt Howarth, which of course we all know that we're big fans of Matt Howarth here as well. I was fortunate enough to get an interview with him that appears in the 3rd issue of the Canon fanzine there. You can go to canonzine.bigcartel.com to order copies of what he still has in stock. I'll make sure that I put the link in the video. And like I said, issue number 3, there's an interview I was able to do with Howarth. So one of the videos, one of the Formalism Fridays, they talk about WRAB and the page where it's this sort of subliminal text that you sort of hold it up to the light and you can see the words coming through on the back side while you're reading the comic on the front of the page. Really, really cool. So that kind of stuff is also amazing to see people who are really steeped into the craft talking about, again, their perspective on what other artists are doing and why it's so appealing to them. It's great to see kind of the fan pages and, you know, people like me who are just reading books and kind of talking about them, who aren't making comics ourselves. That's great to participate in and kind of and watch, but there's something extra special about seeing kind of the creators and what kind of gets them going. And especially when it's a cartoonist that you also love. So the other book that I picked up, I actually picked this up the day before their 5,000 subscriber video came out, just by a total fluke. So this was, I picked this up at one of my local comic shops. This is a 2nd edition from just a few months ago, September 2024, possibly. I think the first printing of this came out in February of last year is what I think it said in the back. And this is Eric Creek. Apologies if I pronounced that name wrong. When they were talking about this book and starting to show some art from it, it was one that caught my attention immediately. It was beautiful. It looked gorgeous inside. But at the time, I just couldn't get my hands on it. And honestly, at that time, I didn't put in a ton of work to get my hands on it. I think it could have been ordered right away through like Diamond. I think they had a deal with Diamond. But thankfully, some of my comic shops here in town and some of the book shops are really doing an amazing job of trying to get in more small press, more independent books, whether they're single issues from Strangers or from Silver Sprocket or from Floating World, or if it's books from companies like Living the Line. It's really great to see that, first of all, that access for the comic shops is there so they can grab these books. And second of all, that the shops themselves are taking the chance. We're a pretty heavy mainstream kind of town, Marvel and DC. Again, not exclusively, obviously, but I would say that that's kind of the dominant. I know that there's certain pockets of the country, especially in the States, where that's completely opposite. Portland comes to mind, where they've got a really strong kind of independent comic scene. But that's not the way that it is for us here. So a lot of times when I want to get something, that's me ordering from, normally most of the time, from the States. And that shipping just really makes the whole cost skyrocket. So it's great that some of the shops are able to get this stuff in so easily. So this is, it's very basic. This is a Viking comic, and our main character has been exiled for 7 years. And it kind of picks up with him coming back to his homeland of Iceland and kind of trying to reintegrate himself back into his village with his people and with his family. And I don't really want to say much more than that, because I do feel like there's a pretty good journey you go on here as a writer. And I also will say that one of the things I found really helpful, especially early on, was this first couple of pages here where we're looking at the cast of characters, and kind of they're separated by kind of the two families or two factions here. And then within those families, you see who relates to who. It still was a little confusing for a bit. It did take me a while, or it did take me a little bit to kind of kickstart that part in my brain to remind myself who was related to who, and whose stepson was who, and how the kids related to each other, because that age gap was a lot. So there was a few points where it was a bit confusing for sure, but it wasn't confusing enough that I stopped. I felt like I had to stop reading, or I just lost interest because I was too lost. You pick it up. The rest of the book was just really enjoyable. The way the story unfolds, our main character is really dealing with some demons. And like I said, as the story expands, you start to find out a little more about him, a little more about his past, and potentially how his future might go. So this was a hell of a good read. Very, very much recommended. And then I don't think I showed, and even if I did, we're going to show it again here. We'll have a look at this is the Living the Line web page here. So livingthelinebooks.com, where you can find out about them and what books they've published so far, and what's coming out in the future. And UFO Mushroom Invasion is one of the books that I've pre-ordered from my local shop. And we'll have a click on the store here as well too. And then Her Frankenstein was the other one that I pre-ordered. Yeah, here we go, right at the top. So I'm really looking forward to getting these. So these will be the ones that we'll talk about next. I'm not sure when they're going to make it into the bookstore. I imagine it's going to be a few weeks yet, but we'll see. But we'll definitely talk about these as we're going. And with that, I'll say thanks very much for watching. Make sure that you throw them a subscribe. If you've read anything by them, please let me know. I'd love to hear your thoughts on stuff. As I said, please go and support Canon here at canonzine.bigcartel.com. You can pre-order the Canon Annual 2024, the top 100, coming soon. 2024, not September, because we're past September, but coming very soon, from talking to Colin just the other night. So Canon number 4 is the latest issue, and I think he's got copies of all of them still available. Yes, he does. Yeah. So there you go. So you can get a copy of all 4 issues of Canon directly from him. I think Domino also carries them. I think he managed to get them in a couple of other stores too. But for those of you online, you can get them direct from Colin or from Domino Books, depending on where you live in the country. So thanks very much for watching, everybody. And we'll see you this Sunday for our weekly kind of wrap up. All right. Later.